Hello, and welcome to Hello Sister, a Vampire Diaries podcast with a magical twist.
We're your hosts, Christina Rosso-Schneider
and Brenna Dinon. Christina, how are you doing today?
You know, I'm doing pretty well, Brenna. Thanks for asking. So excited to be here for our first official episode of Hello Sister podcast. And also, we're on my weekend. So, as someone who owns a bookstore and works retail, you know, I'm off Monday, Tuesdays. So, this is my Sunday. So, I'm getting in some rest, relaxation, and a lot of fun with you. How are you?
I'm good. So, I'm coming off of my weekend. So, top of the work week, but just very excited to be doing this finally. Like, we're here. We've had our teaser episode that we had recorded prior to doing this episode. So if you want to hear a little bit more about us and our lore with our podcast and what we're doing and just kind of us really bantering back and forth.
You get so much of our vibes in
it. So if you really want to... you know, if you're here, you see this and you're jumping in with episode 1 and you haven't looked at the teaser or listened to the teaser, highly recommend. You'll kind of get a little bit of who we are, our vibe, and just a little bit more about our approach to this podcast. But outside of that, before we get started today, we just wanted to run through a few things, most notably our air date. So, Christina, Tell us the background about why we decided to release the podcast today.
Yeah, so happy March 10th. So this is an important date for the Vampire Diaries that maybe you're aware of, but maybe you're not. So the final episode, so the series finale aired 9 years ago today. So it's the 9th anniversary of when TVD ended. So March 10th, 2017 was when that episode came out. And so we thought that was a beautiful way to start because this really is a series and a world about immortality and rebirth, right? Because when you leave your human self behind, whether that's to become a vampire or because your eyes are being open to all of the magic and mystery and intrigue of the world, you'll never be the same. And so that's kind of our hope with this podcast too, that we are starting something fresh and giving something life today.
Yes, I love that so much. Yes. So with that being said, if you had listened to our teaser, but if you haven't, our podcast approach for Hello Sister is going to be largely spoiler-free. So we will, but Christine and I have seen the show. Like, we've seen Vampire Diaries, so we might not be necessarily pretending like we haven't seen the show. So we might, you know, have vague references. To things, but we will be kind of keeping up with the show in real time so that gives listeners, whether you're new or whether you're, you know, maybe doing a rewatch after a while, we're all on the same page and we're going to kind of go through this journey with our characters. So that's sort of where we're going to be on that end. So depending on how you feel about spoilers, that's where we're at.
Yeah. And then just in case you didn't watch the teaser, just so you kind of know what the format looks like for Hello Sister. So every episode of the podcast is going to be exploring an episode of the show. So we're exploring the pilot tonight. And we will also, because, you know, we have a magical twist to it. So we'll always talk through the episode, but Brenna and I are practicing witches. We're in a coven together and also folklore enthusiasts. So we will spend a little bit of time of every episode, sometimes a little bit more, sometimes a little bit less, talking through some relevant folklore. So just a little something extra that we're bringing to the table. And we hope you'll come along on this journey with us.
Yeah, we're very excited to go back to Mystic Falls. So I hope you are too. And here we go into the pilot episode of The Vampire Diaries.
All right, so jumping into some background about The Vampire Diaries episode 1 called Pilot. So it was directed by Marcos Siega and written by Kevin Williamson and Julie Plec, who are the showrunners. We will be talking about them throughout the podcast. And as Brenna mentioned, The Vampire Diaries aired in 2009. In the fall on September 10th. So, Brenna, do you remember or have an idea of where you were on September 10th of 2009 and if you were watching The Vampire Diaries?
I do. So in September 2009, that was my, that fall was my senior year of high school. So I was right around our main character's ages, thereabouts. But I did actually watch the first episode live because I was already a really big vampire fan and had been watching True Blood, and I was very, very excited that a new vampire show was coming. So I was like locked in on my dad's couch that day. And I remember really being so excited just before even seeing the show. But then after watching the first episode, being locked in, I was so excited. But what about you?
Yeah, so I talked about this a little bit in the teaser episode that I didn't start watching The Vampire Diaries until it was probably in season 3 or 4. I got into it. So I was a freshman in college on September 10th, 2009. And it was my college roommate. We started living together our sophomore year and lived together through our senior year. She got me into The Vampire Diaries later on. And then I caught up very quickly and started watching it, episode by episode, week by week, and then went on to watch the originals as well. So where I would have been on the evening of September 10th, 2009, I would have either been at cheerleading tryouts or at cheerleading practice. So yes, I am a proud past cheerleader, middle school, high school, and college. And, we have some cheerleaders in the show, so I think I was doing something in the spirit of The Vampire Diaries and Mystic Falls.
I'm actually really excited for your cheerleading takes when we get to cover some of the cheerleading aspects, because it does come up in the show.
There are definitely some songs that we see them practice to that I also definitely practice to, right? Because it's happening at the same time. And we were talking about this, off camera a little bit ago, that one of my early cheerleading numbers in college was to TikTok by Kesha. So shout out to Kesha. And just like that era and all of the music, which we'll definitely talk about, the very iconic and very 2000s music that is in this show.
Yeah, we're definitely going to do the best we can to kind of call those things out as we go. I'm sure as everybody has their, music knowledge, right? Like, so some people think of certain songs than others, and there are a lot of good ones in this first episode. So we'll call a couple of them out. We might talk a little bit more about them towards the end of the episode, but it's very of the time. And if you have watched the show, you also, I'm sure, have a relationship with the music that comes up in The Vampire Diaries.
Yeah, it's such a great throwback.
Yeah, it really is. So I'm excited to honestly listen, because they have playlists like on like Spotify and stuff. So
yes, they do. So in this episode, our first real episode of the podcast, we are going to go through the pilot episode scene by scene. I came up with some fun titles for all of those scenes, so we'll make sure to share those with you. But before we jump into the opening scene of the pilot episode of The Vampire Diaries, I want to give you just a brief synopsis of the show in case you're not familiar with it, or you just want to see how silly and sparse IMDb's synopsis is for the show. I mean, it's not incorrect, but it is.
But it is pretty like...
It's one sentence. Reeling from the death of her parents, 17-year-old Elena becomes interested in a handsome new student named Stefan, who's hiding a dark secret.
Uh-oh. It just feels so dramatic, but it's honestly perfect.
It's so perfect. So do you want to take us into the first scene, Brenna?
Here we go. So our first scene, as Christina dubbed, I am a vampire. See me fly. So a foggy woodland scene is where we start. And we have a voiceover from Stefan that says, "For over a century, I have lived in secret, hiding in the shadows. alone in the world until now. I am a vampire, and this is my story.
So iconic. I love it so much.
It just puts you right there. There's obviously no surprises that he's a vampire. We're saying it right up front. The show's called The Vampire Diaries, so we already have a little bit of framework of what to expect in the episode. So a couple is driving down a dark road. They're having some banter. They're talking about the concert that they just saw. They have a little shout out to James Blunt, which I thought was really funny because if you are around our age or like were listening to music at that time, James Blunt is a very that time. The song, You're Beautiful.
You're beautiful. It's true.
So it's just silly to think about that because I don't really know sorry to James Blunt, but like I don't know what else James Blunt is up to. But
I do think that there's some commercial I've been seeing in the last couple months where you're seeing like a shot from the music video.
Oh, really?
Of You're Beautiful, and
gosh.
he's like. It's like pouring rain and he's just like, eyes squinty, you're beautiful. And I can't remember what the commercial is for, but I know I've seen it recently because it just feels like such a random thing to see in 2026.
Oh my gosh. Well, we'll have to track it down. Or hey, listener, if you know, let us know. So we continue on with the scene. They're a little confused because some fog starts to roll in, and then there is a figure in the road, and the car kind of swerves, but eventually does hit the figure in the road. That definitely looks like a humanoid person, and but we only really get the shadow of that. And the guy, we're assuming they're probably like partners.
Yeah.
Of some sort, but the guy gets out of the car to go check the person that they hit, which was very like an intense hit. Like,
oh yeah,
and he goes flying. Like the figure goes flying. So, he goes to check the body on the ground, and we do get a glimpse of a ring, which we'll get to later in the episode. But he then gets got by a vampire, which we are to assume since it is a being attacking his neck.
And we get the fangs.
And the fangs are also there too. So it's very much okay.
Fangs out.
We heard from Stefan. We've got a vampire attack. So what's going on with that? And then the woman gets out. She the boyfriend's body gets dropped, and she's freaking out, and she gets pursued by the figure. There's some kind of flying action that as she's trying to get away, and Chomp. And I mean, kind of, right?
I mean, yeah.
And then we have, let's see, we also have... is there anything else? Did I miss it? Did I get everything?
We just see her kind of like lift into the air.
Yeah, lift into the air. That's right. Yeah, lifting into the air. And which I think we kind of had questions around. I guess as we go, we're going to be interrogating like the vampire lore, especially with this episode, because
abilities, yeah.
It's just it feels correct to start with interrogating a little bit about vampires and their folklore. So, can vampires fly? Like, do we know?
We certainly don't know at this point.
Like, yeah, it feels. I don't feel like that's always like a top one in the lore, but
yeah.
I mean, maybe some, but yeah, we'll get back to that later too. But after this little opening scene, our intro plays, and we're here. We're in the episode.
Yeah, so then we move into the next scene, which I've called Dear Diary. And this is where we get to meet Stefan, who we heard in the voiceover, and our protagonist, Elena Gilbert. So Stefan has his back to the camera, and he's you can assume he's writing in his diary, or he's musing about him coming back to town. You know, he's maybe rethinking it or regretting it. He has this line, which I just love. It's like so melodramatic and so perfect. Feels so teen too, you know, like everything, your emotions are so big and everything. I know he's a vampire, but like still,
yeah.
He's been in the body of like a 17-year-old for a really long time. but he's like, I know the risk, but I had no choice. I had to know her. He just has to know her. And we can assume it's Elena, but we'll find out soon. There's also this really cool jump scene from the roof. So love that.
They really were popping off in this first episode and just showing these like superhuman things that vampires are doing. So
I love it. I love it so much. And then we see Elena at her house. No cool jump. But she's writing in her diary about how today needs to be different than past days. And we know that she's lost her parents. Before we jump into the next scene, which is going to take us to the first day of school, I wanted to know, Brenna, did you write in a diary?
Oh, that's such a good question. I did. I had a lot. Like, I was a very big, like, diary journal person from a very young age, too. I feel like it was definitely something I always, like, kept. I mean, like most things, because I'm not always good at consistent follow through, but I would periodically keep a journal for a period of time, especially when I was like going through things, as you do as a young person. And it was, so I actually do have in my one drawer at my house a full like drawer of all of my old journals.
Wow.
What about you?
Well, first, before I answer that, I want to know if your little sister Charlie ever stole your diaries to your knowledge.
I don't think so, but, and maybe that's because, and we'll talk about this later too, but my sister, who is also a big fan of the show, shout out to Charlie.
Hi, Charlie.
But she also did keep like diary journals as well. So I wonder if there was like that unspoken rule of, well, if I'm keeping one, I'm not going to read someone else's. So.
Right. So the same kind of rules that apply, morality that Stefan has that we'll learn later in this episode. I love that. I absolutely kept a diary. I mean, we're both writers.
Yeah.
And empathetic people who are sensitive and just, neurodivergent and all of these other things. And so I had a lot of big feelings, and I'm the youngest of 3 in my family. So I got kind of neglected by my older siblings, which was honestly good for me because they weren't very nice to me when they were paying attention to me. So I played by myself a lot, and I wrote a lot, whether I was, writing in my journal or I was like trying to write fiction. But I asked about if you think Charlie ever read your diaries, because I 1000% would sneak into my older sister's room and hide under she had this table by her. She's probably, if she's listening to this, learning about it for the first time. Sorry, not sorry, Jackie.
Sorry, Jackie.
I also don't remember anything I read, so I don't think it was that juicy. But she had a table next to her bed, like a nightstand, but it had a tablecloth on it. And I was small enough that I could fit under it. So that was my plan. I would go in. I maybe only did this once, but I could have done it more times because I had a plan, clearly. But I would hide. I hid under there and read it, because if she came in, she wouldn't know I was there.
Yeah.
So I don't remember anything I read, but like that's such like a little sister thing.
That is so little sister.
And we've started to read the Vampire Diaries books, and in the books, Elena has a little sister.
She does,
and the age gap is a lot larger than we see with Elena and Jeremy. And so I wonder if later in the series there is any kind of like your journals getting taken by her, and certainly there are other people who are maybe snatching that journal. And we see that in the book as well. Yeah,
I actually just love that, because it is that whole just little vignette that you described for us is so little sister coded. And it is so, and what's fun with Christina and I is because Christina is the youngest of 3 and I'm the eldest of 2. So we've got like different birth order energy, but like it makes for fun like dynamics, because I love hearing about stuff that and we'll get into that too a little bit later as well, because I've got some questions for like being in high school with your siblings. But it's just like, I don't know, there's something to it, because there is like, I mean, I don't know, I've never been a little sister, but it feels correct.
yeah And I just thought of this, that it's funny because you are Team Damon and I am Team Stefan, and so older brother, little brother. Older sister, little sister.
There must be something to it.
Yeah. I love that. So that was my little let's talk about diaries. But do you want to take us into the next scene, Brenna?
Absolutely. I was trying to think if there's any other like thing before. No, I think I've covered everything I wanted to remark upon as it pertains to diaries and journals. But I feel like we still both kind of keep different ones too, but more for like writing though now.
Yeah. So. I mean, I know we both have many notebooks, and we both have a specific notebook for this podcast. Yep. I don't do like full journaling in the way it's not like Dear Diary, this is what happened today. But with my tarot practice, I think that's where I journal the most, or I do like kind of a little reflection. So there's definitely still some journaling there, and I would definitely not like anyone to read those.
I feel like we do have that, like even when we do. So for those that haven't gotten to look at our teaser episode yet, Christina and I are practicing witches, pagans. We're in a coven. And we do, when we do get together and practice, a lot of times we do have a little bit of a like reflection journaling moment. So I agree, like that I also wouldn't want people reading that, like those things, whether it's based off of a tarot pull or like a ritual that we did or something like that. That's sort of where my current journaling moment comes in. So, but... Let's go back to high school.
Let's go back to high school. No, thank you.
Actually, literally never. You could not pay me enough to go back to high school.
Which is why it's crazy that this vampire goes back to high school.
I have so many questions.
I would go back for Stefan Salvatore, though.
Okay, that's fair. I love that. Well, when we get to the other part of it, I will call it out. But for now, for our next scene. First day of school is our title. And we have Elena, Jeremy, and Jenna in the kitchen of presumably their home, right? They're getting ready. First day of school, everybody's kind of scrambling around. And you can just tell there's just some conflict between them. Jenna's obviously the adult figure here. She's trying to get the kids out the door, trying to say the right things.
Yeah, she's their aunt.
As their aunt and their like parental, like their guardian figure. But she's also a student and trying to get to her own thing that she's doing. So you're seeing a little bit of that dynamic. And also the craziest thing to me personally, and I like keep telling Christina this because it was shocking that after rewatching the episode again, I caught this earlier because I did like rewatch a little bit earlier today. And Jeremy and Elena both pour a cup of coffee in a mug. And I don't know about you, listener, or Christina can definitely weigh in. In no world before high school would you catch me like drinking a full like mug of coffee at home? Like no shot. That is going in a thermos if I'm making it at home or if I'm driving to school or like I was, carpooling with somebody, we're stopping on the way, maybe to, I don't know, like at a coffee shop. Back then, I feel like there weren't as many like cute indies, but so I did go to Starbucks, but I definitely would because I had a little bit of a drive to school. So my question to you is, were you a coffee drinker? Did you like drink anything before school? Like what was your preschool like routine like?
Yeah, I'm not a coffee drinker, so if you're watching, you may see I'm drinking some tea. And I wasn't even like a big tea drinker or anything in high school. I am a morning person, so I feel like I've always, I certainly drink caffeine now. I'm a chai tea latte person, and I did have my first chai, I think my junior year of high school at a cute little coffee shop, like an indie coffee shop.
So shall we move on?
Yeah, the last thing I want to say about that scene is that when Elena is drinking her very casual large cup of coffee, we do see in the background on the TV the news, and it's talking about the couple from the opening scene and that they're missing. So then the next scene I've called Psychics and Crows, and we finally get to meet Bonnie Bennett, who in our teaser episode we talked a lot about just how we love her. She's the witchy best friend. She's also one of the only people of color in the show. Yeah. And she's such an incredible character. And the podcast is one of the things we want to do is really have justice for Bonnie and explore her because she doesn't get enough screen time, certainly in the early episodes, and it does not go well for her without any spoilers. But so she's driving her BFF, Elena, to school. And this is our first kind of glimpse of downtown Mystic Falls. One thing I will say, a little bit of trivia, is that they filmed the pilot in Vancouver. So then the second episode onward, they're in Georgia. So the set is going to look a little bit different. Downtown Mystic Falls, the cemetery, everything are going to look a little different.
The more that I see that, it really is obvious. Like
you can't unsee it, right? Yeah. So that's just like a fun little thing. But this is our first glimpse at Mystic Falls, and Bonnie is talking about potentially being psychic. So her grandmother, who she calls Grams, has been telling her that she might be psychic and that they have ancestors tracing back to Salem who were witches. And she thinks this is kind of funny, but she mentions like she did predict Obama was going to get elected and Heath Ledger was going to pass and a couple additional things, which is kind of just like cool and random. And one thing to note is because she is Black, her ancestor with Salem would most likely be Tituba.
Yeah.
So just something worth noting, because so often the white women are who get the focus in Salem. There were also men who were also put on trial there too. So Elena is not really paying attention to Bonnie so often, and it'll come up in this episode. Literally, Stefan will say to Elena, like, Bonnie seems like the best friend, and she is the best friend. And Elena is like a good friend, but
she's just a solid good friend.
She's like a B. She's like a B, maybe a B plus, depending on the day. She's literally just zoning out, which we know she's lost her parents, and we're going to learn something in a moment that maybe gives us a little additional context for an excuse for her kind of zoning out. But she ends up apologizing to Bonnie, and Bonnie's like, let me, make a prediction about something, and she starts to say she sees something, and then all of a sudden a crow hits the window of the car, and then Bonnie's car goes swerving, right? I love their reaction that they don't realize it's a crow. They are like, it was a bird. I'm like, yeah, it's a crow. It's a very recognizable bird and a large bird. But why this is relevant is that, besides the crow, which will come up a bunch in this episode and moving forward, but that Elena says that she can't be freaked out by cars for the rest of her life. And so this is, again, us starting to put together the pieces of what happened to her and her parents who have passed. And then Bonnie, in a great best friend move, just kind of tries to lift her spirits and says that she thinks this is going to be a really good year for them. They smile at each other. And when the camera pulls back to the street and Bonnie goes back to driving the car, we see that crow sitting on a street sign.
Spooky. And then we eventually make our way to high school, Mystic Falls. So our scene, major lack of male real estate. We are here at Mystic Falls High School, and we do see the camera kind of go through the little high school vignettes of all, people saying hello to each other and doing that very first day of school. And also probably, I don't know, did people at your school do people do that? Do people hang? I feel like no. I don't know. Like, do people hang out front of school anymore? Is that a thing? I don't know.
My high school was not set up for that.
Yeah.
Like, you literally pulled up, like you drove up and there was sidewalk in the entrance.
Yeah.
There was a courtyard that was in between kind of like where the administration building was and a hallway where a lot of classrooms were. And that we definitely hung out there, but usually more so during free periods and stuff. Right. In college though, because this is a different setting, a different set, right, used than in later episodes. But there's this large green space, right? And where I went to college in Staten Island, Wagner College, has this beautiful, it's literally called the Oval. It has this beautiful big square in front of the theater building.
Nice.
And actually a lot of SUVU has been filmed there and other things. And it is, if you're like, maybe I don't watch a lot of SVU, that building and that Oval is the opening exterior scene of School of Rock.
Oh my gosh.
When he's like driving up and he's running late, that is
what?
The center of my college campus. And so that is very like, we absolutely hung out.
Yeah, like that feels more like a college thing, that having the more like sweeping green space to be able to do that. Like my high school was almost situated like a college campus in a way, because I went to Notre Dame Academy in Villanova, but because it was spread out, like it wasn't one big school building, which I think a lot of public schools tend to be like a sweeping big like building, and there might be some others.
They look like penitentiaries.
Yeah, well,
most of them do, and they feel that way sometimes too.
Yeah, and so ours had like kind of clusters of buildings, so we would have, so it was a little more college campus style in that way, but we didn't have the like sweeping thing. But I think that feels very the big green space for high school is very common in these types of shows for their time and that what came before them. So it feels very, even if it wasn't your experience, it feels familiar to us because of the fact that like that is oftentimes what that looks like for high school-esque media. And so we're going through, but we see Stefan, presumably, which it does, you can pretty much tell it's Stefan, and he's just walking into the school building, and he's looking real cool with his leather jacket, and he has a hoodie, the leather jacket
with the black hood,
like a hoodie combo. What a time. And then we see his Ray-Bans, so very, very cool for first day of school.
So cool.
And then we're inside. And Bonnie and Elena are also walking in the hallway, and we're just listening to them kind of go back and forth about the major lack of male real estate. There's some weird things that Bonnie says about calling somebody a hot tranny mess. We're like, we don't love that, so no, Bonnie, no. And thankfully, Elena in the scene does actually say that that's not a thing that people say anymore, so thank goodness. And then we also do catch a glimpse of Matt, who is sulkily listening to music with his headphones across the way from the two girls, and it's very clear there's obviously some stuff going on there, but Matt has a Letterman jacket.
He's a jock.
We're getting there with our stereotypes. And Elena does try to wave to him. He does not really wave back. He just looks sad. And Elena says to Bonnie, like, he hates me, because she's obviously feeling guilty about that. And Bonnie is basically just, affirming, like, no, he doesn't hate you, because we do find out that Elena dumped Matt. Yes. And she says, that's not hate, that's you dumped me, but I'm too cool to show it. But I'm secretly listening to Air Supply's greatest hits, which actually I don't know who Air Supply is, but
I don't either.
I'm like, okay, if you know Air Supply, let us know. But yeah, so we then get this little blonde, sprightly lady,
ball of energy
to coming in, and here we are. Caroline Forbes has entered. And she's hugging Elena, asking Bonnie if Elena's okay, and then eventually like Elena kind of answers for herself. She's like, I'm standing right here. I'm like just being okay. We can tell that Caroline is definitely our like the most friend, like that just big energy friend coming in, just very intense, but out of a place of care, I would say.
I think so too.
Yeah.
I mean, I think in the early episode because there is like this exchange between Bonnie and Elena, and we see that carry on throughout the episode. So there's almost this like frenemy aspect in how they think about her, and is something that I think to a certain extent Caroline thinks about. But to your point, I do think she's genuinely coming from a good place. Yeah. It doesn't always translate.
And
And
at the high school, and who among us at high school were maybe too intense at times? And
I'm too intense right now.
I know, I'm still too intense, but that's it. So we're getting a sense of just the different characters that we're meeting along the way.
Yeah. So then we go in the next scene, which I call Pete Wentz wants his nail polish back, an incredible line. We are outside of Mystic Falls High, back by the Dempsters, and we see Elena's brother Jeremy giving Vicky Donovan drugs. Then Tyler Lockwood comes up, so we're getting to meet a lot of characters, a lot of high schoolers in this moment. And it's obvious that she and Tyler are romantically linked in some capacity. They're like canoodling together. And Jeremy's looking really upset about it and just smoking a blunt. And this is when, Tyler kind of locks in on Jeremy being there and says, hey, Pete Wentz called. He wants his nail polish back, because Jeremy is, and it actually becomes more emo as the show goes on, at least for a bit. But he has, the dark nail polish and all of that sad boy thing going on. But remember, he did lose his parents, and he's a teenage boy.
Yeah.
Hormones.
Yeah.
Hormones. And then there's this weird moment where Vicky tells Tyler, like, this part's not weird. She tells Tyler to be nice to Jeremy. That's not weird. But then it's like, don't you know who he is? He's Elena's little brother. And it's like, your town is the size of my finger. And like, you all know each other, right? I know it's the first day of school, but like, you know each other. And Tyler's like, I do know him, but like, I'll still kick his ass. Yeah. And then he and Vicky just start making out in front of Jeremy. And that feels so high school to me, too. Mm-hmm. It's like so tone deaf. It's so just like kind of gross PDA.
Yeah,
and
gross PDA.
And Jeremy just looks sad.
And in that moment, and we'll keep tabs on some of these characters through their journeys, but in that moment I do feel bad for Jeremy, but sometimes Jeremy can really annoy the shit out of me, and I will be
he's a very annoying little brother.
He is very much fulfilling that archetype. Okay, so we move on to our next scene, Hot Back, and that is where we are back in the hallways of Mystic Falls High School. And Elena and Bonnie are walking, and they kind of stop right outside the doorway to the administration office, and Bonnie goes, who's this? And Elena says, all I see is back. And Bonnie goes, it's a hot back.
It sure is.
And it is.
It is a hot back.
And so we are looking at just Stefan, and we kind of get, I guess, like a little more into like where Stefan and the administrator are, and we do see this little like strange exchange. I don't think they're not really seeing anything.
They're just staring at hot back.
They're just staring at hot back. But
being nosy, as teenage girls are.
Yeah, of
course.
Or
as I still am.
But as the administrator's giving Stefan a little bit of a hard time for his records, he pulls down his glasses, and there's a little something that goes on there. A little compulsion, a little sway, a little thrall. Who knows? We'll learn more about that as we go, but we see that, and everything ends up being fine with the paperwork, suspiciously, and then Bonnie and Elena are still kind of hanging back, kind of just chit-chatting about Stefan, thinking that he might be from Seattle, that he might play guitar. We were Christine had pointed out that might be like a loose reference to some Twilight.
Yeah,
and
Forks, Washington.
Yeah, so it feels
somewhere near Seattle, I think.
Yeah, just vaguely referencing that kind of stuff. Just sort of, it's fun. It's fun that the different vampire mediums are vaguely aware of each other, right? At that time when they're all making stuff, just outside of the episode. Just it's fun to see the little references.
Yeah, that they can play on each other. And this is a real quick side note, but because we've been reading the early books in this, and the books for the Vampire Diaries, came out in 1991, the year I was born, and so they predate Twilight, and it's very different in the first book how we see Stefan and Elena interact, which we'll get their first meeting very soon, but it's very much more like Edward and Bella, trying to stay away from her, being kind of hostile, all of this stuff. And you can't read that and not think, okay, Stephanie Meyer's kind of stole this. Definitely ripped off of it. Definitely was inspired by it. And so it is, some of it is fun. And sometimes you're like, is this just exactly what you decided to do? And then add your things. But Yes, sorry. Continue.
No, you're great. And yeah, so we do see just, they're still going back and forth, and then Elena sees Jeremy walk into the bathroom, and she immediately zeroes in on him and just walks right into the men's room to follow her brother, and Bonnie is hanging back and just hoping that Stefan's hot, which
Please be hot.
he is hot.
He is. So then the next scene is, you haven't seen crazy. And I feel like you have to say it like that, or else what's the point of saying it? So now we're in the men's room. Jeremy's putting eye drops in. Elena comes in, grabs his face, and, is like, great, you're stoned on the first day of school. He denies it, tells her to chill. Don't tell someone to chill, especially a femme person. We do not like it.
No.
We do not like it. And it is the great way to make us not chill, honestly. So he calls her crazy, and this is where the title of the scene comes from. It's a great delivery by Nina Dobrev. Goes, you haven't seen crazy, Jeremy. And then she talks about just how she kind of gave him the summer to basically fuck off, right? And be in his feelings, use drugs, whatever, because they were grieving. They are grieving. But she's like, I'm not going to let you keep doing this. I'm going to ruin your buzz. Every time I'm going to be their very older sister kind of energy. And then she also, says to him in this more kind of heart-to-heart tender moment of, I know who you are and it's not this person. So don't be this person, right? And he tells her, he blows her off, right? And he leaves the bathroom.
Yeah, she's definitely bringing the big sister energy here. And we kind of see this with Elena that she... Even though we were just being like, Elena's an okay friend, but she is a good sister.
She's a really good sister.
She is trying to look out for her brother, and she wants him to be okay. So, after the little bathroom interlude, Elena exits the men's restroom, and we get what we have dubbed bathroom meet cute. So Elena comes out of the bathroom, and we are also kind of right by the office area. It's all sort of in the same place like we had been saying. And mysterious guy, Stefan, turns around, and Bonnie is also stunned by Stefan. So we see Stefan, and this is kind of happening all crisscrossing at the same time. Caroline also notices Stefan, and then Elena does come out and sort of just gets the awkward crossing paths with Stefan, and they're trying to do the moving around thing that
we've all been there.
People do. It's always so awkward.
But not necessarily with someone this hot.
Yeah. Maybe not in a meet cute way, but definitely happens all the time, especially in city areas. I feel we both, as we've said in previous in our teaser episode, we're from the Philly area. We live in Philly, work in Philly. Or have at any given time. So that happens a lot. You're moving around from people. But I think that kind of happens in general anywhere. It doesn't have to be a city. But so they end up, having that little moment. And then he kind of questions why she's coming out of the bathroom. And she's just kind of don't worry about it. And they go their separate ways.
She looks over her shoulder at him too.
Oh, yes. There is a longing. There is a wistful look for sure.
So then we move into what I've called HAWT, HAWT-E, history. We are now in history class for the first time with Mr. Tanner, the world's worst teacher. And I say this as a teacher. He is trash. He is trash. I will say he doesn't have pupils who are very engaged with his content, but also his delivery and pedagogy is lacking. Elena's, looking at Stefan, and then he's looking at her whenever she looks away. Matt's in the classroom because who isn't in the same class in Mystic Falls? He's looking real sad. Bonnie's in the class too, and she texts Elena, hottie, staring at, @ the letter U. And Elena, of course, smiles at this.
And I wanted to call this out because the phones that they're texting on are very old for those of you who maybe never had a dumb phone, but these are the pre-iPhone Android phones where you didn't have your internet on your phone, and it's just this like just texting people. And this particular phone, I was trying to find what model that phone was. The best, I didn't go that deep into looking at this, but it did look a little bit like maybe something related to a BlackBerry, not like the BlackBerry proper, but maybe something like that. But either way,
The DIY BlackBerry.
the DIY BlackBerry or whatever they had on set to have the phone like this. But just shouting out the texting that if you had lived during like lived, but I mean, who knows? But
We're old enough to have access to a cell phone.
Yeah, like if you had a cell phone at that time, it was probably something similar to this, and just the texting was so different than it is now with your little T9 word, and it was just such a very funny, and also just like the texting that Bonnie does specifically, I feel like it's very similar to AOL Instant Messenger speak.
Oh yes. Takes me back.
For those that know and have used AIM, that it felt very like in that vein, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So then we move into the next scene, which is that's not creepy or anything, and it's after school, or at least we are meant to think that, because Elena is walking through Mystic Falls to the Mystic Falls Cemetery. There is a note on the sign says established in 1792. This date will change in future episodes. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention that we have a really iconic song at this moment. One Republic, Say All I Need. Yeah.
Big song there.
Big song. And then, we hear some additional ambiance. We have a crow that squawks as she enters. She looks over her shoulder, of course. And then the next time we see her, she is sitting with her back to a grave. She is writing in her diary. She loves her diary. She's just kind of talking about how the first day went, how many people were asking, if she's okay, and that she didn't mean it anytime. She looks up from her diary, and we see her parents' tombstone, and then the crow, or a crow, maybe it's not the same crow, but I'm pretty sure it's the same crow, lands on it. She doesn't notice it herself until it caws, and then just like in the car, she's like, "Hi, bird." I'm like, "It's a crow, honey. It's a crow." And she says, "That's not creepy or anything." She keeps writing. All of a sudden, some fog starts creeping in. And there's this moment, she's looking around. She's looking at the crow. She's trying to get the crow to go away, which, what's the crow doing to you? And then when she turns around, the crow is now on the tombstone that she had been sitting against, and she grabs her stuff and runs. And the camera shows this figure standing behind that tombstone where the crow had been. He's shrouded in fog. So kind of like the opening scene, we can't really see much of this figure. And it seems like Elena does notice this figure. She frowns and then starts running. There's very intense music. And then she falls. She just straight falls. And as a clumsy person, like, hey, I probably would also fall. So she scrambles up to her feet, turns, and oh my God, but who is it? Stefan Salvatore. So he wants to make sure she's okay. She's very out of breath. She accuses him of following her, which I think we're meant to think that she thinks he might be the person or figure she saw back with the crow at the tombstone. And he says he wasn't following her. He saw her fall. And, in not the nicest way, but I understand it. She kind of like snaps back at him and says, "You just happen to be hanging out in a cemetery." And he says that he was visiting family there. She feels pretty badly. Yeah. She does apologize, and just kind of talks about how she got spooked, right, by the fog and everything. Then all of a sudden we get some romantic music, and they officially introduce themselves. So she says her name, he says his, and she says, I know we have history together. And he says, and English and French. And it's just such a sweet little thing. There's this romantic moment. He pulls a leaf from her shirt or a little branch. She thanks him. She notices then, while his hand is near her, that he's wearing this very gaudy, very large, very noticeable ring. And he says, like, yeah, it's kind of weird. It's a family thing. I'm stuck with it. And we'll come back to that and its meaning. But I do want to remind you that in that opening scene with the couple, we did see a close-up of a ring. Mm-hmm. So then Stefan frowns and asks if Elena hurt herself. And she's like, I don't know. And she goes over to a rock. She pulls up her pant leg and her bootcut jeans, which I'm wearing bootcut jeans right now. So I didn't even think about it, but I think I was meant to wear them for today. I'm glad that they're back.
Yeah.
Honestly. And so she pulls up her pant leg and she's like really bleeding.
It's a gnarly cut.
Yeah. It's a real like gash. And Stefan turns away when he sees the blood. His eyes turn all red. What does that mean? And he tells her that she should go and take care of it. She replies that it's not really anything. And when she turns, he's gone. And I just, as I said, I'm a really clumsy person. I also have 2 dogs.
Yeah.
I'm always covered in scratches and cuts and things like that. If I can trip on something, I will trip on something. But I also know when it happens, right? Like we see something that looks pretty significant. So like, wouldn't you feel that?
Yeah.
Wouldn't you be like maybe limping or something? I know there's adrenaline and things like that. But then also for Stefan, who we already know, obviously Elena doesn't know, but we know as a vampire that it takes him so many minutes of conversation and being that close to her to, I guess, smell the blood.
He's so distracted by...
I mean, she's a babe, so...
How cute she is that he forgets
straight
that
hair.
he forgets he's a vampire.
Her bootcut jeans.
Her bootcut jeans are really doing it. Also, just that outfit. Also, I know we're gonna talk about other outfits later, but that outfit's iconic. Like and I guess it is the one that she's wearing to school anyway. But like the red shirt with the jean or the leather jacket, and the jeans. I'm like,
the
okay,
Converses.
girl, Converse. Yeah. So that is quintessential like 2008, 2009 garb for sure.
Don't worry, we'll definitely do something where one of us will wear it. Because, hey, I have bootcut jeans and Converses.
Me too. And, so it's just very, it's always like mysterious because, she's a little confused because Stefan just kind of abruptly sort of just goes away.
He just pops up and then he, disappears.
But then we get to our next scene. I'm simply not able to resist her. And we are at the Salvatore boarding house, and this is a beautiful big home, and we see like the exterior. We go into what I believe is Stefan's bedroom, and he's writing in his diary just about losing control today. I'm because of Elena's blood that was like rushing down that he forgot about until he remembered
a pivotal moment.
And but then he just kind of ends it with, I'm simply not able to resist her. And so we kind of keep rolling along, and in the next episode, which is scene. Episode
You're
scene,
doing great.
LOL. We're really doing good today. No, in the next scene we have it's titled, when was the last time you had sex with a puppy?
Hopefully never.
Hopefully never. But the whole scene is, we're at the grill. It's called Mystic Grill, right? I'm pretty sure that is the name.
But they just call it
the grill.
The grill.
Yeah. So we're at the grill, and Jeremy tries to say hi to Vicky. Vicky is working. She is busy, and she is
leave her alone.
Like, Jeremy, come on. We gotta like pump the brakes here a little bit because one, it's just getting a borderline a little much, but two, she's working, like leave her alone. But we get a little bit of the scene at the grill. We see Matt and Tyler are there, and Vicky goes over to them at the table because she is bringing them some things, but we do kind of find out, or we see Matt and Tyler sitting there together, and Vicky's kind of like batting her eyes at Tyler, and we're and we just see that Matt kind of clocks it, and Matt and Vicky are brother and sister. So somehow, like, they brush it off in such a way, even though I feel like as two friends and then getting a wind that you're one of your, I don't know how, I mean, I guess they would be best friends. I'm guessing Tyler and Matt, or at least close friends.
Yeah, I mean, they explore it more as the show goes on, but they're supposed to be best friends.
But yeah, they're pretty close friends. But he just kind of glosses over the fact that there's probably something going on there, and he just calls him a dick, and then we have Vicky comes back to Jeremy, and she does tell him, basically to not bother her. We do find out that they did have a little bit of a romantic interlude, and that was where we get the iconic line. Like, she's essentially being like, hey, thanks for the drugs, because obviously from the previous scene we have seen, like, Jeremy's been giving her drugs and things, and but she's basically trying to distance herself because obviously she has some feelings for Tyler. And we get the iconic line, when was the last time you had sex with a puppy? Because then we find out they were more than just, hanging out. Like, they were obviously, sleeping together. And
she deflowered Elena Gilbert's little brother.
Deflowered, which just makes me crack up when I think about it, the way that he says it. And but yeah, so she doesn't want she just doesn't want anything from him, and Jeremy's just being kind of annoying about it, as men tend to be.
Yeah,
so.
He's super annoying about it, and it's like saying like Tyler only wants her for one thing, and I mean, to her credit, like, she does push back of, well, what do you want me for? And this is a conversation that will continue to happen in this episode between them. But we've probably all been like the subject of interest by someone, and trying to parse out if it's, especially in high school, if it's just a physical thing or if it's something more. And I don't blame her for being like, go away. And also, I'm working. I'm busy.
Yeah, and you can kind of just get this idea that Vicky definitely has a little bit of, like, some self-confidence, like some stuff going on there.
Chip on her shoulder,
for sure. So.
But we'll talk about her more.
Yeah, we'll get to her in a little bit.
So now we continue on to what I call, we're planning a June wedding, a very iconic line for the series, but you won't learn why until later. We're still at the grill, and we see Caroline. She's walking around basically like she's the mayor of the grill, with what looks like to me a Shirley Temple. I love it. And she is relaying all of the intel to Bonnie that she got on Stefan, learning that he's a Gemini, his favorite color, his family was in the military, so he moved around, all of this stuff. And I do love this moment, and it feels so high school, and it's such a great, I mean, it's an impressive thing about Caroline, honestly, as someone who loves collecting gossip, but only safely sharing it, I will say. That's an important caveat. I am a Gemini, so, I do want the tea. But so Bonnie's like, you got all of that in one day. And she's like, please, I got it all between third and fourth period. And then she makes the comment, we're planning a June wedding. I also love this moment, too, because she then sees someone off camera, waves to them. Like, she's the most popular thing in the world, which, she's definitely a popular girl. For sure. And then she walks away. In the next scene, so all of that's happening at the grill, and we move into a scene I've called Memories Are Too Important. And we're back at the Gilbert house. Elena's getting ready to go meet Bonnie at the grill. So she tells her Aunt Jenna she's going to go. Jenna tries to be a parent,
don't stay out too late or something like that.
A for effort.
Yeah.
And when Elena opens the door, there is Stefan, right? Because that's basically, besides that he has a hot back and he wears Ray-Bans and a leather jacket, this is his defining characteristic in the first episode, that he just appears.
Showing up.
He basically, scares Elena every time. It's startling when someone's just there.
If he was not as hot as he was, this would be so unsettling.
Though that's also just kind of in general, would Edward Cullen be actually or any of the Cullens be attractive to us, or would they be creepy? Same with True Blood, etc. Right? It's these supernatural creatures are hot, so we're okay.
You're like, okay, it's fine that you're really being creepy and also showing up to my home that you don't know where I live and somehow found my address. So
she does. I mean, to her credit, she does ask. But so he appears. He apologizes for disappearing earlier, and Elena makes the comment, "I get it. Blood makes you squeamish," and he just is like kind of accepts that. He's like, "Yeah, something like that,
Sure.
right?" He asks about her leg. She says it's fine. Again, super downplays it, and then she does ask, how did you know where I live? And this is definitely. I mean, it feels small town, but also it's creepy. That he says he just asked the first person he saw, and they told him where she lived. Don't do that.
I feel like that's a no-go in today's world. I would not be willy-nilly giving out my neighbors' addresses.
I won't even post on social media where I am 99.9% of the time.
Yeah, I mean, it's just so wild. But I mean, hey, they're a small town, so I guess that's how it flies there. But that is one thing when we were watching the episodes, I was like, I wouldn't just be giving out anybody's address.
No,
but hey,
don't
I guess.
do that.
But maybe whoever Stefan asked, maybe they also were taken aback by his hotness and just gave the information.
You can forgive a lot for hotness. Yeah. So then he returns her diary because she had dropped it at the cemetery, and he promises her, and we were talking about this a little bit earlier, like he promises her that he did not read it, and she wants to know why not, which I think is just a great moment of like, no, but like really, why didn't you invade my privacy? And he mentions that he keeps a diary or journal, as he calls it. So he wouldn't want anyone to read his, and he says memories are too important, so he wants to write things down. Elena disappears for a second. I'm assuming she's going to get her jacket. She leaves the door open, and Stefan just hovers in that doorway. And there's this moment where the camera shows that his boots are like right against the threshold, but he doesn't cross it. He's even holding the door frame, right? And I love this line. He looks like so awkward, uncomfortable. He's like, I'm fine, because she like calls to him from inside. When she returns, she looks at him like he's being weird, and then to kind of change the subject, says, it looks like you were getting ready to go somewhere. Where are you going? So she's going to meet a friend, and then she invites him to come along with her.
And then we have our next scene. When I'm with him, I'm thinking of you. And we are back at the grill, and Matt is interrogating Bonnie for info about Elena. And we just got a shout out to our girl Bonnie for not really giving in to Matt or getting in the middle of the affairs of two exes. And we do find out that it's been 4 months since Elena's parents had passed away. And Bonnie tells Matt to give Elena more time and just try to like leave it there. But then, lo and behold, Elena walks in with Stefan, and then Matt is just definitely bothered by that. And he actually does get up. Matt does get up and go in and introduces himself to Stefan, which is pretty bold of Matt, I'll say.
It is.
And another music shout out here. The music playing underneath this is Kids by MGMT. So that's just a fun, another just really putting us there in the time. And then we are, firmly here in the grill. Stefan's sitting at a table with Elena, Bonnie, and Caroline, and they are grilling him at the grill. As high school girls are, they are expected to do. And
they're not like subtle about it
No.
at all, though, which is hilarious.
No, and they're just asking about all these things, about when his parents died, and they also notably ask if he has any siblings, and he says, none that I talk to. And they are just kind of going back and forth, and then there's mention of a party at the falls, and Caroline invites Stefan to go, and which is funny because even though he is a 200-something old vampire, right? 200, is that how old is he? I forget how old is
I
actually.
think he's like 145.
145, that's right. Sorry, I think Angel is like 200, that was why I was in my head.
Angelus, that makes sense,
yeah. But he just completely swivels to Elena and is like, are you going? And Bonnie, of course, again, best friend, wing woman, just says, yeah, she's going.
So then in the next scene, Where Do I Belong? We're back at the Salvatore boarding house. This is the first time we get to see a close-up of Stefan's abs. This is a pivotal moment for anyone watching, but especially for the Stefan people. And so, yes, I do take note. It is an important moment for me. His uncle, Zach, right, who's really like his great-great nephew, barges into his room with a newspaper and starts accusing Stefan of having, that he doesn't have, in the scene we learn that he doesn't, feed on people, and he's like, you said you had it under control, all of this stuff. And Stefan's like, I didn't do this. And we see that the newspaper, the headline says bodies found mutilated by an animal. Right. And we know that's a cover up. It is vampires because we know from the opening scene, and we also know from the opening, monologue that there's at least one vampire there. So there's this back and forth between them, and I love it because Zach's like, Uncle Stefan, please. Mystic Falls is a different place now, and talks about how while it's been quiet, and we can assume for like supernatural kind of activity and specifically vampires, that there are still some people who remember. So that's starting to share a little bit of history, a little bit of tension about maybe what made Stefan leave Mystic Falls originally. He, slaps back. It's like, I don't have to explain myself. And Zach says, I know that you can't change what you are, but you don't belong here anymore, which is such a sad line. And what's sadder is Stefan goes, where do I belong? And then Zach says, I can't answer that for you, which is fair, but he says coming back here was a mistake. So Zach leaves and Stefan opens his bureau, and inside we see all of his journals. There's many of them. And inside one of them is a portrait of Catherine. We will learn more about her moving forward, but it's dated 1864, and she looks a lot like Elena.
Spooky. And I will say another thing while watching the episode that I clocked was, again, with music, is there is this cover of Running Up That Hill, but it's by the band Placebo. But for anyone that watches Stranger Things, I feel like Running Up That Hill has become a pretty popular song in the more recent past because of Stranger Things. So it was actually very like jarring realizing that this song was in the episode. I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, oh wow. And it's actually kind of a pretty cool cover of it too. I was into it. I'm like, oh, okay, that's cool. So our next scene, brush up on your facts, Mr. Tanner, is back at school. We're in history class, and
the only class they go to,
the
apparently.
only class that they go to, and this is where we kind of really see Mr. Tanner being the worst on full display. Like, we already got a little hint of that in the previous scene, but this is where he's just all out being the most rude, and he's just really like just patronizing to all of the kids, and like he kind of just jabs at Bonnie, jabs at Matt, and even at Elena, and he even just like gives Elena a hard time, being like, I was willing to give you a pass, but like it's not gonna fly anymore. And it's so crazy to me that he's talking like this because of the fact that like I believe at this point we know when they pass, right? We did that.
We learn in the upcoming scenes,
okay, so we don't know yet. Okay.
But saying like personal excuses ended with Summer still.
Summer, right? So we know that like obviously we'll talk about when there is a time where that's revealed when we learn when the parents passed away. But like the fact that the teacher is like not cutting her any break, even though presumably it's not been that long since her parents passed away. Like, it's still new, and just being that rude is fuck this guy, is all I'll say about Mr. Tanner. And then just a little kind of touch on the history. They are talking about like the Civil War and how
1864
about how like Virginia had joined the Confederacy, and how that was really a thing. And it's so wild, again, because it's just a very loose background information, but it is like a big deal for the story.
And historically, right?
And historically,
but
yeah.
These kids, the irony that these kids, besides Stefan, who hands Mr. Tanner his ass, and it's wonderful,
yeah.
That these the rest of these students have zero interest in history, especially town history. And so much of this story moving forward is going to be actually them having to learn about that history because not everything's staying in the past.
Yeah. And it's pretty wild how much Stefan just schools Mr. Tanner on history and then, kind of just tells him to go check like the local civic house or whatever it is. It was something like that. Yeah. And it's pretty funny.
Yeah. So then we in the previous scene at the grill, we're told about this party at the falls. So we finally get to go there in a scene that I call He Has a Romance Novel Stare. So we're at the party at the falls. Stefan arrives and is listening in on conversations around him. So this is our first kind of nod that his vampirism, one of the powers he might have is, an increased sense of hearing, right? He overhears Bonnie say to Elena that Stefan, has a romance novel stare. And as he's listening, Caroline, our girl, comes in and intercepts him. She drags him off for a drink. And then Bonnie and Elena continue talking about him, and they're like, where is he? And Elena says, you tell me, you're the psychic one. But Bonnie's like, I need to concentrate. And Elena's like, you need a crystal ball first. So she gets a beer bottle, and when Bonnie touches it and touches Elena, her eyes get wide and we hear the spooky whispering. And when Elena asks her, what happened, Bonnie says, that was weird. When I touched you, I saw a crow. There was fog. A man. And Bonnie's pretty freaked out by this, like noticeably shaken. She says she's just drunk and is like, I'm going to go get another drink. Yeah. And Elena's just kind of like confused by it. Like she doesn't seem freaked out like Bonnie. And when she turns, there's Stefan again. And, when he asks what's wrong, she says like, it's something with Bonnie, but never mind. You're here. And this is again, like yes, he's very dreamy, but also like your friend is freaked out. So like maybe check on her. Yeah. And she's been drinking. Go check on her. So then the camera shows some additional people who are partying at the falls, and we see Vicky and Tyler in the background, and we see them walk off in the woods. And then around the same time, Elena and Stefan are walking to this bridge, talking about how they both kind of have this mysterious thing going on. But Stefan says that Elena he can also tell she's sad, and he wants to know why, or she wants to know why he thinks she's sad. And he says, well, we did meet in a graveyard. And from there, she's like, no, we met in the men's room technically. Right. And it's again, kind of this cute, meet cute reminiscing moment. And in this, she tells Stefan about the car accident that killed her parents, that she was in the car with them. The car drove off a bridge into a lake. She survived. They did not. And, he says this line about you won't be sad forever. And before we move on, we got to talk about Elena's party outfit. Let's go.
Yeah. So we've got the party outfit, and this is like just full on display. We kind of talked about her first outfit earlier, but here's this. So we've got high boots, stockings, jean skirt, leather jacket, layered shirts, and a dangly necklace. And it is just so of that time, 2010s, coded so hard. And like the high boots, not only the high boots, but they're heeled boots.
Heels for a party in the woods.
And it's just so wild. Like I don't know if I would ever do that. And actually, before we even like keep going, my question to you is, have you ever been to like a bonfire party like in high school or any kind of like outdoorsy drinking thing in high school?
Not really. I mean, most of our like high school parties were at people's houses. Yeah. There weren't any, like even after like football games and stuff as a cheerleader, there weren't like bonfires and stuff. But I definitely was wearing mini skirts. But I was like wearing Uggs, right? Yeah. Like I was 1000% wearing Uggs, and layered shirts for sure, dangly necklaces for sure. But, the public school that I went to was larger than Mystic Falls, not a large school, but still larger than Mystic Falls and more spread out. Yeah. So as I mentioned before, I didn't live super, super close to my high school. So, there were some times where for people who lived in the same development or neighborhood, you'd sleep over at one, like, I sleep over at Kelly's house, and then we'd climb out the window and we'd go meet up with Grant.
You climbed out of windows too in high school?
Many times.
Same.
Many times.
Oh man, I love that.
At my house, I couldn't have climbed out of windows, so I just literally walked very quietly downstairs and out through the garage.
Okay. That makes sense.
And I was successful.
Hey.
I was successful. But there was definitely sneaking out.
Oh, yeah.
There was, and then sometimes there was, maybe drunken debauchery around a neighborhood or, in a hot tub, like stuff like that, but not in the woods. What about you?
I definitely did sneak out of, and you probably, it'll be funny because, like we said, Christina, her current home is literally around the corner from the home I grew up in. So the houses look very similar structurally, but so the basement window, like that small window, I would not only sneak people out, like we would sneak out from there, but we'd also sneak like boys into the basement through that window. If you know, you know, friends who were there, you know. But no, it was so wild. But yes, I know people who I was hanging out with, because I did hang out a lot with not only just people from my high school, but because my high school was a little further away, I did hang out with people who went to like the local public school as well. So I had a bunch of little different friend circles, but people did go like drink in like fields and stuff and in the woods, but I never did. Like I never really went there. I was similar to you, like mostly was at, you know, someone's house, parents were away, something like that. It was usually a little more in that vein than like being outside in the woods. And I would have never worn a heel to anything. Even if I did go outside, I would never. I did go to one bonfire, actually, funnily enough, where your high school was, because the person that was hosting that bonfire party went to your high school.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, full circle there.
But yeah, so just crazy times. But those outfits, I definitely had a lot of those dangly necklaces and
so many layered shirts.
Yeah, the layered shirts.
I don't know why. Like, and they were really long too. And then we had the really short skirts.
Yeah.
You know, I was in 7th grade when I always think of this. Mean Girls came out when I was in 7th grade, and so really it was 8th and 10th grade in particular. I feel like I was, as the movie says, my baby prostitute phase. And, you know, like the tiny Hollister skirts.
Oh, yeah.
And the polo shirts. And I wasn't wearing heels like you see them wearing in Mean Girls or we see Elena wear. I was wearing Ugg boots. But, you know, the skirts that were so short, I was not wearing leggings or tights underneath them, even in the middle of winter. And it was, you know, a lot of lip gloss or the concealer lip.
Oh, I like missed that.
You were not missing anything. You were so glad you didn't do the concealer lip.
When I look at those reels online, I'm like, I feel like I missed this concealer lip situation somehow. I don't know, but
I feel like some celebrities kind of do the concealer lip still, and it freaks me out. Or like just their lip gloss, their skin, like everything is the same shade. It really freaks me out. Yeah. And I think it's because it takes me back to like an 8th grade dance where, you know, the really heavy eyeliner, pin straight hair, you know, and then putting on more concealer on your lips in the bathroom.
That's unreal. That's so crazy. I did not know that this was a thing with the concealer. I mean, I've seen it around online. I just that was not me. I was very much a lip gloss person. And actually today I did try to, because I did notice like in terms of makeup that they were doing, because at the time this was a popular thing and I know it's not as much now, but waterline eyeliner. And so I did a little bit of it. I mean, you're not going to really be able to see it in the camera, but like I did a little bit today as an homage to the waterline eyeliner. I sometimes still kind of like do that anyway normally, but yeah, it was very... The looks were a whole thing. And I think now, currently, there are some, like Hollister and, like, Abercrombie are trying to, like, do a little, like, retro throwback to some of these times. So maybe we need to, like, go check that out.
We might need to. Also, this is just, like, a random thing because I follow some, you know, influencers. And, there's one in particular that I follow, and it's for like curvier people, which I really love. And through her page, I've learned that Abercrombie has a whole line of braless clothing, so tops, dresses, etc., that have some built-in support in them.
Okay.
And the person that I follow is curvier than I am and looks supported, and I really want to try one of those out because I hate wearing a bra.
Yeah, I do too.
It's terrible. So I think we probably should.
Yeah, we should go.
I actually, you know what? This is so random, but I have a Poshmark, and I just sold a pair of Abercrombie jeans from high school.
Oh my gosh.
That I like sometime in the last couple of years like found at my mom's house, and I was like, well, these won't fit me anymore, but they're in great condition. I'm going to sell them.
Hell yeah.
And
wait,
so
were they low rise? Or were
yeah,
they,
of course they were low rise. Of course they were low rise. Now I'm like, if it doesn't come up to my belly button, it's too low.
Too low. It's even these, like the jeans I'm wearing today, I will not be standing up, but like they are more like regular
mid-rise.
They're not like super, but I always, even these feel like a little too low sometimes, and I will never go back. I don't think
never.
Even though I know Gen Z, whoever's trying to get this trend of the like, no guys, we're not doing this. We're not going back to like you can have a sensible like one. If you don't want to do a full like high rise jean, but it's just not it's
not happening for me. So back to the party. I mean, we needed that moment for the fashion. That outfit deserves a moment. It did. So we're back at the party. So Stefan and Elena are talking. Then we go back to Vicky and Tyler, who are in the woods. They're starting to hook up, and he's trying to go all the way, and she says no, and he's forcing himself on her. Jeremy walks up and tells him to leave her alone, and Tyler does, the guys kind of square off or whatever the word is for that a little bit. But Tyler does leave. In the books, at least as far as we've read, there is a party at the falls in the woods, and in it, Tyler actually tries to rape Elena. Yeah. And it's Stefan who ends up. Yeah, it is absolutely rough, and Stefan's the one who saves her, and it also creates this kind of additional arc for Tyler's character in it. But I feel like this has to be a nod to that, right? But it's really uncomfortable, and it really paints. It really colors how we see Tyler at this point. I mean, we already didn't love him, but she gives Jeremy the worst excuse in the book on behalf of Tyler, and is like, he's drunk. And then she tells Jeremy to go away. And again, there's we really feel like her self-esteem is not where it should be, and we feel for her. Then we go back to Elena and Stefan on the bridge. They start talking about her relationship with Matt and why she broke up with him. A big thing she says is it felt obligatory to give it a try because they've been friends for a long time, and that there wasn't any passion, and they make googly eyes at each other. All of a sudden, his eyes go dark and veiny, and he walks off, making an excuse that he has to get them a drink. Classic Stefan. I gotta roll out. Then we are back to Vicky, who is just walking in the woods, right? Because she sends Jeremy off. Tyler's gone. Fog starts to creep in. She stops looking around. There's more fog. Then all of a sudden, there's a figure in the background. When she turns, there's a lot of turning, and then someone behind you or coming up in front of you. We see this figure behind her. She screams, and the camera cuts to going back to the party at the falls. Elena and Matt are talking. Matt's kind of accusing her of, saying she said she needed more time, or Bonnie told him she needed more time, and now. Elena said she wanted to be alone, and he's saying, you don't look so alone to me. And he goes on to tell her that he still believes in their relationship, and he's not going to stop fighting for her. Which, good luck.
Come on,
good
Matt.
luck, Matt. But have you seen Stefan?
Yeah, Matt. Come on.
You got the beautiful baby blue eyes.
He does.
He's fine.
Yeah.
He's fine. But,
yeah.
Stefan. So Stefan is watching and listening to this with, his special hearing. Caroline comes up again. She hits on Stefan. And he, as kindly as he kind of can, very directly says, Caroline, you me, it's not going to happen, which we're going to give Stefan credit for that, right?
I appreciate Stefan for this. Like, I might not be Team Stefan, but I am team be direct about your feelings towards other people. So I do appreciate him just not leaving any room for that at this moment in time.
And this is like the third time that she's hit on him.
Yeah.
Like very shamelessly, very obviously, right? And, as someone who has been in high school and had crushes and, not necessarily told someone you like them, but it's very obvious. Like I'm not a subtle person.
Yeah.
And I can think of a couple of people from high school who were older who I like thought were really cool and we were like friendly and I thought it might go somewhere and it didn't.
Yeah.
And it's that kind of thing of like, why have this be this gray area? Like, be straight. Do you know I like you? Do you like me back?
Yeah.
And so I respect Stefan for that, He then walks right over to Elena, leaving Caroline. She sees Jeremy stumbling into the woods. She's mad. She follows him. And then he trips over Vicky, who is alive but bleeding all around her neck.
Mm-hmm.
He and Elena carry her back to the party, and Elena makes the comment that it looks like something bit her. We see Stefan in the kind of the crowd that's gathered, looking pretty freaked out, pretty upset. And then Matt notices as Stefan runs away.
Matt's clocking it. We'll say that.
It sure is.
And then we have Brothers Brood. So we are now back at the Salvatore boarding house. Stefan is running inside, telling Zach about somebody else being attacked and that it was not him. And he's, kind of just very much frazzled by what had just happened at the falls. And he's up in his bedroom and the doors to the balcony are open. And a crow flies into the room, presumably the crow that's been crowing with us this whole time, and lands on the rafter. And then behind Stefan, we see a figure standing out on the balcony. This is looking very similar to that figure that we have been seeing all episode. And we get a little turn from Stefan, and we hear Stefan say, Damon. And the camera moves towards Damon, and Damon says the iconic line for the first time, hello, brother. And with like the most shit-eating grin ever. And hello, Damon Salvatore. Welcome to the chat. Here you are. You are here.
Brenna's so happy.
I mean, just the whole look, the whole vibe. I mean, there is just something about his just like tousled hair.
His hair is all over the place
and
in the first few episodes.
It is, but it's like working for him. And like just Ian Somerhalder's just like beautiful, beautiful eyes. Mm-hmm. And, those of us who are Damon lovers, we're like aghast at this beautiful man who's also a murderer. So, but I think something...
Everyone has their flaws.
So everyone has their flaws, but this is like just having the brothers sort of being positioned in such a way, it does very much have them being like in this like shadow cell, like they're very much foils of each other, and that's going to be something that I think we'll probably talk more about as the show goes on. But we're here. We now see them together, and as we continue on into the next scene, which we have titled "Wait Till You See What I Can Do with the Fog," and we're in Stefan's bedroom still. The crow is calling, and Stefan goes, "Crow's a bit much, don't you think?" And then Damon replies with the line, "Wait till you see what I can do with the fog." Funny story about the fog, though, everybody. This isn't that big of a spoiler for those if it's your first time watching the show, but this fog does not come back.
Right,
like
the Damon fog.
The Damon fog.
There is fog. There's always fog.
There's ambient fog.
Yeah.
But there is not Damon fog. And same with the crow. Like this is just, I mean, I don't know, maybe there are crows around, but it's not as intentional as what we've seen so far in the episode. And And then the brothers kind of catch up a little bit. We hear like Damon jab at Stefan about like missing his first day of school. They're like, oh, like sort of little patronizing older brother energy from Damon. And just like complimenting Stefan on his like new look, because apparently his look in the 90s was pretty bad, which I would love to have seen. I wish they had a picture of it somewhere. But,
I know.
And so, Stefan's just very curious why Damon's there. And he's just kind of flippantly being like, because I miss my little brother. And
everything he says is flippant.
It is. It very much is with him. And so we kind of find out that it's very much heavily insinuated that it is obviously Damon's behind these attacks. Right. And kind of saying basically like, well, he's basically going to be a problem for Stefan, and that these animal attacks might be a problem for him. And does mention Elena and brings her up, and sounds like there's something with that Damon's immediately clocking this.
Yes. So then the next scene we call It's Just the Beginning. We're back at the party. We see that there's an animal control unit truck there, right? Because the official story is that there's an animal that's been attacking people. Vicky is put into an ambulance. Matt climbs in with her. Elena's watching this, and Bonnie comes up and is just saying like, I'm definitely not psychic, like kind of thing. Like, I know it's crazy. She's dismissing it. But she said, whatever I saw or think I saw, I have this feeling that it's just the beginning, which is pretty spooky the way she delivers it. In the next scene, we move to Stefan's bedroom. So back with Stefan and Elena. It's not Stefan and Elena. They were talking about Elena. Back with Stefan and Damon. And this scene we're calling I Promised You an Eternity of Misery. So Damon brings up that Elena looks just like Catherine, and Stefan insists that she's not Catherine. And this is a really telling moment because Damon says, well, let's hope not. We both know how that ended. Now, you might not know how that ended. Obviously, we know because we watched the show, but we don't know yet in this how far we've watched in, what that means. But we will learn it, right? There's intrigue. And this is, when I alluded to it earlier, I jumped the gun a little bit of saying when he's talking to Uncle Zach that, talking about the attacks and if he has it under control, I'd said like, well, Stefan doesn't feed on humans. This is where we officially learn it. But it's still alluded with like the under control and everything. But so Damon does feed on humans. Stefan doesn't. And so there's this back and forth between the brothers. Damon's trying to rile him up and ends up doing that successfully by saying that they should feed on Elena together and what she must taste like, which is also, definitely a euphemism there. Stefan throws himself at Damon, protecting her honor, right? They fly out of the window. We see two bodies hit the ground, but when Stefan is climbing up, Damon is not there. He's actually off leaning against a wall, super nonchalant. He's teasing Stefan about using, his vampire, like, and, the eyes and all of the things. And Stefan, says to him, like, it's all fun and games, Damon, huh? But wherever you go, people die. And Damon does not argue that point, right? He says that's a given. And Stefan says that he's not going to let his brother hurt anyone else. And in this moment, Damon ends up stealing Stefan's ring that we saw earlier, but eventually he does give it back to him in the same scene. But this is where we first start to learn a little bit about the rings that both brothers have and that they're magical and are protecting them from the sun, because he says to Stefan, if you don't get this back before sunrise, poof, you're gone. This also really gives us the first nod to their feud, which is going to be a much larger part of the show and the story. And, Stefan's like, can't we just give it a rest after all of these years? Damon says, I promised you an eternity of misery, so I'm just keeping my word. And this is also something that will be repeated throughout. And also in this scene, it's very much like, Damon showing that he's the alpha, right? He says as long as Stefan is not feeding on humans, he will not be strong enough to take on his brother. He will not be able to get in Damon's way. So, kind of in that vein, Damon throws his brother on the ground again, and he walks back into the house.
And then we are in our next scene. Mom and Dad wouldn't have wanted this. And we are back at the falls, or what's left of the party after Vicky's accident. And Elena and Jeremy are just kind of connecting. And Elena's just checking in on Jeremy, but also thoughtfully reminding him that while everybody else while like he's like they might still be upset about the loss of their parents, like everybody else is also is moving on, and that he needs to, like, people are going to stop giving him breaks, and that he needs to kind of, basically he has to watch it, and he needs to also move on in a way. And also just Jeremy drinking beer in front of the cops is like just such a wild choice. And then we go to our next scene. I try so hard and I'm never the one. And after we cut away from the falls, we're at a coffee shop that we actually never go to again. And I'm very jealous of this because this late night coffee shop would be literally everything to me right now as an adult. But Bonnie and Caroline are sitting across from each other at a table, and they're sobering up, or at least Caroline is, and because they need to get home. I'm hoping that they didn't drive. I don't think so. I know Bonnie had said she was drunk earlier. I don't think she was, but or if she was,
but then
maybe
also
tipsy.
It seems like she is responsible for getting Caroline.
Yeah,
home,
but she's getting Caroline home, so I don't know. But kudos to them for waiting it out and trying to sober up. And then, Caroline, very just kind of upset, is just reeling over the fact that Stefan rejected her. And she says, and it's sad, and I'll read a little bit of what she says. She's like, "Why didn't he go for me? How come the guys I want never want me? I'm inappropriate. I always say the wrong things, and Elena always says the right thing. She's always the one that everyone picks for everything, and I try so hard, and I'm never the one." And then Bonnie lovingly reminds her that it's not a competition, but Caroline replies, "Yeah, it is."
Yeah. And
Poor
that's
girl.
it's this humanizing moment for her, because so far in the episode, like you said, it seems like maybe she's coming from a good place, but we don't know enough about her yet. We know we know she likes gossip. We know she's into Stefan.
And she's abrasive.
And she's definitely in your face. But this also shows a lot of awareness, self-awareness from her. And I feel like we've all been a teenager who felt competition with a friend, whether or not it was a valid competition. Sure. It feels like it. So the next scene, which is very short, we call it Vampire. We are at the hospital in Vicky's very large hospital room, and her brother Matt is sitting by her looking sad, because he's always looking sad in this first episode. She wakes up, looks at him, and goes, "Vampire."
Dun, dun, dun. That's our first, I think, acknowledgement of a lay person talking about a vampire. Yeah.
And then we move into the final scene of the pilot episode, which we're calling Don't Let Me Go. We're back at Elena's house. She's writing in her diary about the day and everything that's happened. Then we're at Stefan's. We're in his bedroom. He's looking at the portrait of Catherine. He's also, we think, writing his journal or reflecting. Then we go back to Elena's, and we're downstairs, and we see Jenna standing in the doorway watching Jeremy, looking really upset while he looks at a photo of his parents, understandably. We're this is we do a pass by of everyone, right? So then we're back at the coffee shop. Bonnie goes to pay the bill. Damon is there at a neighboring table and smiles at Caroline. We will talk more about this in upcoming episodes. Then we go back to Elena's, and she's continuing to write and is really saying how, she needs something good to happen. And she looks out her window and Stefan is there. Never Say Never by The Fray plays then. Elena goes to the door to meet him. And, the first thing he says, because, this is after the party where someone was attacked by an animal. And, and he had left. He'd rushed off. So he asks if she's okay, and, she brings up that because of her grief, and losing her parents, about 4 months ago, that that's all people want to know about her, and Stefan wants to know, and he's seeming pretty, sad himself. Yeah. He wants to know what she tells them. And she says, I always tell them I'll be fine. He asked, do you ever mean it? And she says, ask me tomorrow. And then she invites him inside where they can talk. And he accepts the invitation, and we see him step into her house. And the episode ends. So now that we've talked through scene by scene the pilot episode of the Vampire Diaries, we're going to jump into a little bit of folklore and a few other fun extras before we wrap up our first episode of Hello Sister podcast. So Brenna, do you want to kick us off with some vampire folklore since, you know, this is literally an entire show and universe about vampires?
Yes, absolutely. So I think as Christina and I have been mulling over what this folklore section will look like from week to week, we will be probably in these initial episodes getting our feet wet, just figuring out what kind of folklore and to what depth we want to go into certain things. And because we will have a lot of space and room for folklore as we continue on in the series, we might cover some things maybe at like a high level view, and then in a subsequent episode maybe dig a little deeper into something else. So given the fact that we do have our vampires being a very prominent creature of folklore in our show, I'm gonna introduce some just our general-ish, but maybe something that you haven't heard before with vampires as far as folklore is concerned today. And I am so certain that as we continue to go through this show, we will probably bring up some other pieces of folklore as well. So with that being said, the concept of vampires can be tracked as far as ancient Greece, and in medieval times, redheads were believed to be vampires. So just even from that, I did not know that that's how far back that
I didn't either.
They were, you know, that lore has stemmed from. So that was something really interesting that I had found on Britannica.
And apparently I'm a vampire.
Yeah, which also does by de facto makes you a vampire, I think.
I'm okay with it, I think.
Right?
I'm okay with it, I think.
Yeah, shout out to all our redheads. You are all vampires. But also, even continuing with the redheadedness of it all, in ancient Greece, there was also a belief that when redheaded people passed on, they did become vampires. So that was really fun. That was actually something I did not know, but
not at all.
Like, here we are. But if you know, depending on your familiarity with vampires, we'll just say, for saying's sake, vampires are undead creatures in folklore that prey on humans, most notably by drinking blood. And they don't have, like, a firm set characteristics for folklore. There is a lot of, like, loosey-goosey interpretations depending on, you know, where you're getting that from. But the way we think of vampires generally are almost always associated with blood consumption. Mm-hmm. And unless you're an energy vampire, which is, you know, a thing. If you watch
totally different type of
a different type of vampire, which maybe we'll get into another time, and possess sharp teeth and fangs. And we get a whole range of what vampires could look like, whether they are completely like ghoulish and haggard, more like our Nosferatus, or the, you know, smoking hot vampire brothers, like,
or they sparkle,
or sparkling. So a person can become a vampire in a variety of ways, and the most common is to, of course, be bitten. And there's like a biting of a person, and they get their blood sucked, and then there's a little bit of a blood exchange there. It always makes me think of in Buffy when she is explaining this in the show, where she says, like, there's a whole like it's like someone sucks to here, something, like, she's like, it's a whole sucking thing. I'm misquoting that, but she does end with it saying it's a whole sucking thing.
It is a whole sucking thing.
It is a whole sucking thing, exchanging of fluids. And then other fun ways to potentially become a vampire other than being bitten are sorcery or contagion, or having a cat jump over a person's corpse, which I found really funny. And some people believe that babies born with teeth could be vampires. Or if someone was born between Christmas and the Epiphany, which is January 6th, they could also be potentially a vampire.
That's so wild.
I know, right?
The cat part and the redhead, how do all of these pieces? So what if you're a redhead who owns a cat, your birthday is January 3rd?
I think you're a super vampire. I think you just are the most powerful vampire that ever lived.
So you can control fog. You can become a bat and or crow. All these things. I feel like all of the above. Compulsion, etc.
Yeah, 1,000%. So with that being said, vampires usually, even from our super vampires, but also in general, vampires usually do not die from disease or human afflictions. They are undead, but they are known to heal pretty quickly. And in terms of wanting to exterminate vampires, which I'm sure we will be talking about time and again as we go through the series, some of our standard ways to kill a vampire are a wooden stake through the heart, fire, decapitation, and exposure to sunlight. So these are all those tried and true ways to eliminate your local vampires should you need to.
I love to, we've talked about how you haven't seen Twilight. And the decapitation plus fire is how they kill most of the vampires in it. And even in the first film, we see that. And it's really funny how they pull the head off. It's like pulling a head off of a doll because obviously, it's a prop head.
Yeah.
And, rip off their head and burn them. It's very dramatic. And I love it. But I haven't really seen it in a ton of other vampire things. So just a fun way.
I'm trying to think of it. I mean, I think I'm always going to be partial to just the Buffy staking poof vampires, but also to talk about a more modern vampire-esque story, I just recently read Bare Bones in the Midnight Soil by V.E. Schwab, and they had a very interesting take on vampires in sunlight, which was not necessarily vampires go poof, but there is a lot of agony and stuff to that, which I thought was kind of interesting, just in a depiction of how that impacts a vampire. With other little lore tidbits, in terms of repelling vampires, garlic, tried and true, and running water, which
so interesting,
is really, really fascinating. And I don't think I really knew that one. That was one that was surprising to me, but I think it's not uncommon with certain dark folklore creatures though.
Yeah, and that was something we had looked into, right? Because we were like, what is it about water specifically? And the thing we found is that water is, and it makes sense with holy water being, another thing that can repel any kind of demons, right?
Yeah.
Vampires included, because there's also a lot of lore that vampires don't have their souls, right?
Yeah.
Once they've transformed, right, or transitioned. Obviously, Buffy explores that a ton, and the Vampire Diaries does it in a different way.
Yeah.
But this idea that water is purifying, and so it's protective. And I have to bring up the classic 2000 Mom's Got a Date with a Vampire Disney Channel original. It's iconic. I rewatched it this past Halloween, and there is a moment where the kids put the vampire's coffin in a body of water, and he can't get it. He can't cross it. And in this world, if he's not back in his coffin by sunrise, he'll poof.
Ooh, see, that's really fun. And that's why I love that there's always
worth watching.
So many different interpretations to this. And of course, some other standard repellents for vampires are, of course, our crucifixes and holy water from our Christian influences there. And one of my other favorite things, not necessarily repelling vampires, but I love this, is that in a way to distract a vampire, if you throw like seeds or like marbles or objects that that are just strewn about, vampires are compelled to count them, which I, one, as a lifelong Sesame Street fan, love, because that just now makes so much more sense to me. But also just the fact that if you just had some, like, what if you just took the contents of your like purse or something and just like threw your makeup? Someone needs to do this in a movie. Like, just throw your shit from your purse, and just then the vampire has to be counting that. Someone please.
Yeah, I would really enjoy watching that.
Right? Like, it's just so, it's just it was just very like cheeky to me to know that, but it tracks with sort of some of these things that we've also seen in, pop culture. And then, of course, vampires typically are unable to see their reflection in mirrors or any reflective surface. Also can extend to photographs. That's not always true. Mm-hmm. There are some, I know, vampire stories that don't adhere to that, but that is kind of a general one that you see a lot. And another thing going to that is, so in, I guess, like, because Europe, I feel like 18th, 19th, even, I guess like 18th and 19th century, we can probably comfortably say is like kind of where a lot of like more stuff, and I'll get into that in a second, about where we started like building more of the folklore. But I think it's also was a way for people to sort of explain certain illnesses, and that's a lot true in folklore, where they're using the mythology to kind of explain what's happening to somebody, like a very real thing that's happening to somebody. So there is this disease called porphyria. I think porphyria.
You're doing great.
I think I said it right. Porphyria. And I think it's also maybe technically coined as the vampire disease, but it is a group of illnesses that refers to a buildup of porphyrin, which, to get a little scientific, helps hemoglobin bring oxygen to the bloodstream. So it does, I guess, like there's like some issues around with that. So it can make someone appear more sallow or yellow, or just kind of like in that more gaunt way. And that can have some issues with skin irritation, which also could lead to sensitivity to the sun. So there you can kind of see with that very real condition, which sounds really tough, and I'm so sorry for anybody that might have to like deal with that, but it does kind of track with that like older lore of the sunlight and the way that a vampire could look in terms of their undeadness, or I guess deadness. And then kind of touched on it in just a couple seconds ago, but modern vampire mythology is often attributed to Gothic literature in the 18th and 19th centuries, and as I said, there was a little bit of a vampire hysteria, probably related a little bit to illness, probably a little bit of just people were hysterical at that time because there was a lot of shit going on, and I think people just wanted to kind of just find ways to explain what was happening here, there, everywhere. But naturally, Gothic writers loved the idea of what people were talking about when it came to vampires. So we started seeing that in literature. So we had poetry and famous works such as John Stagg's The Vampire in 1810 and Lord Byron's The Giaour? I don't know. I'm sorry, everybody, that I have not fact-checked that. But 1813 is when that was published. And then the first prose vampire story was believed to be John Polidori's The Vampire in 1819, followed by one of my personal favorites, Sheridan Le Fanu's Carmilla, 1871. And then, of course, most notably, our Bram Stoker's Dracula in 1897.
Which is crazy because that comes after all of that, right? And
yeah,
just because of the popularity of that story, right? And how iconic Dracula is. I think so often I surprise people at the bookstore when I'm like, well, Carmilla predates it by like decades.
I do really love that. Like, I love that Carmilla really is, she was ahead of her time in so many ways.
Such a babe.
I love Carmilla so much. And then I guess we wouldn't be able to really, talk about vampire, like just our general vampire folklore without kind of bringing in Vlad the Impaler, of course. So Vlad III of Wallachia, heard it a different couple times. I did look up that one. And there were a couple different pronunciations.
She did. I was there.
And but what's interesting about this is that the ancestors of Vlad III became honored into what was called the Order of the Dragon, and that was like a noble warring family, and that is where we get sort of those like core words of like Dracul and Drac, which were derived into probably what Bram Stoker then used to create the name of Dracula. And the reason why Vlad the Impaler was called as such is because he had a very interesting way of killing his opponents, which was impaling his enemies. So that is very intense. And maybe also probably why we have a little bit of that the staking of vampires being part of the folklore as well. I mean, I don't know that for sure, but it sounds like it probably maps up pretty nicely as to that. So a fun fact before I let us move on from what will be the first of many little tidbits into vampire folklore. A fun fact from our episode is that the fog and the crow aspects are most certainly, without a doubt, of Dracula reference, like for Damon. And I think that the show was really trying to pull on those popular known threads of vampires to just really put us in a vampire story. Dracula is able to become mist and shapeshift into creatures, and while Damon's not actually doing that in our show, like he's more manipulating it. It seemed like Dracula folklore he can like kind of do those things and manipulate those things, but they sort of leaned into Damon just manipulating that for that. But it was kind of cool to put that connection together.
Yeah, it's definitely really cool, and we'll in future episodes explore more of what vampires in this universe look like.
Yeah.
One of the things is we see in the pilot that Stefan can't enter Elena's home without an invitation. So that's something that they stay true to, but even from something like this to True Blood, it's handled in a different way, but it'll be fun for us to explore those.
Yeah. So we'll definitely, we probably could have made a whole podcast episode on just vampire folklore.
It'd be like 7 parts.
In general. But since we have a lot to cover today in our first episode, we will leave you there with that. And now we're going to learn a little bit about crows.
Yeah, so Brenna was sharing that fun fact about the fog and the crows and the pilot episode with Damon and the connection to Dracula. So I have just some quick kind of fun facts about crows and how they kind of show up in folklore. So they're huge in folklore. I feel like they are such an iconic figure of the macabre, whether we're looking at crows or who I would say are their cousins, ravens, right? Edgar Allan Poe, certainly since we were talking about literature, has made that such an iconic kind of figure. But there's something about crows, about these black birds that caw in this very eerie way, right? So they... when you see one, in terms of folklore, it can be said as it's an omen to see a crow, both good or bad, depending on the situation. They are often seen as messengers between the living and spiritual realm, which a lot of birds, I'm someone who is very Snow White in the way that I walk around and talk to birds and believe that they talk to me, which is something I can talk about more in a future episode. But this idea of because they are airborne, right? Because they have wings and they can move from one place to the other, it makes sense that they can move from one realm to the other. So crows are seen as messengers between the living and the spiritual realm, or as messengers of the gods, which I think is really cool. Sometimes in terms of like the bad omen aspect, crows are seen as harbingers of death, and learned religion said, quote unquote, stealer of souls. Spooky. They are also connected to divination and prophecy, something we're going to talk about prophecy and clairvoyance and psychicness, everything in our next episode, episode 2. But for the ancient Greeks, which we were talking a little bit about with vampires, the crow was a symbol of the god Apollo, who was not only the god of the sun, but also of prophecy.
I actually did not know that about Apollo. Like I knew the sun, but the prophecy part I was not clued in. That's cool.
A lot of I mean in many pantheons, but especially in the Greek mythology, it's like god of X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
You know, like Athena is the goddess of wisdom, but she's also the goddess of war.
Yeah.
Right? So there's some that are more popular versus less popular, right? We often think of Apollo with the sun. So then there's also divination using birds, which was popular among the Greeks and the Romans, which is called augury, right?
Yeah.
I said that correctly?
Yeah, I think so.
And augurs interpreted messages based on not only the color of a bird, but the direction in which it flew, which is super cool. I don't think I would be an augur. Because I'm colorblind, but also because I have a really poor sense of direction, like really epically bad. So I don't think that's one for me. But the other bird stuff, I'm here for. Crows are often seen as clever tricksters, and we especially see these kinds of archetypes for them in indigenous folklore. Moving to Celtic mythology, crows are often associated with the goddess, the Morrigan, who I know my girl Brenna loves.
I love the Morrigan so much.
And sometimes the Morrigan actually transforms into crows, which is pretty dope.
Badass, really.
And then moving to Norse mythology, Odin travels with two crows, which I'm going to try to say correctly. I did look it up. Brenna was there. She's my witness. But we have a friend, Ash, who actually works with Odin and other Nordic deities. So hopefully I say it okay. But Odin travels with two crows, Hugin and Munin.
I think you did really nice. That was really good.
Thank you. Thank you so much. These two represent thought and memory. And then just my last little tidbit is that it's supposed to be bad luck to kill a crow. So don't do that. Don't kill crows.
No.
Instead, put out shiny objects so that you can become best friends.
Yeah. I mean, who doesn't want to become best friends with a crow? I certainly would love to. I've been trying for a while, but just not like, I need to really commit though, you know?
Yeah.
Like I really got to make sure you get the nuts and get the stuff. And I feel like I need to like find a way to let them know where we live. Be like,
this is my apartment. This is how you approach it.
This is where we are. Like shine like one of those like big like when it's like really sunny out. Just be like, hey, we're here. Because I've been trying and I've looked up how to do this. And people are successful when they try to do it. And
people are definitely.
And they will bring you little knickknacks.
And then you should give them. That's actually part of why there is in particular one crow that hangs out in my front yard. But around the neighborhood, I see murders of crows, which I love. I get so excited. But I feel like I need to stockpile shiny objects so that once I gain their trust and their interest, I have enough to give them.
Yeah.
I am wondering though, I did recently get solar panels. Do you think those count as shiny enough?
Oh, they might be shiny. They might
shiny.
be heralding the crows right over to your backyard.
That might be how this spring I start to truly befriend this crow.
Do we then do a coven gathering in your backyard where we also invite the crows to be with us? I
mean, obviously.
I mean, right? Like that's the next That's the next step is to be like,
logical step.
Befriend crows and then invite them to our coven ritual.
always looking for a new coven mate of the animal variety.
Oh, honestly, always, because they're the best. One other thing about just crows and feathers in general is with, I mean, it's not just with crows, but just feathers and seeing feathers kind of out in the wild is can always be like a sign from ancestors and the color significance of like whatever color you're seeing, or a pattern like with a certain kind of feather, because like certain birds, like if it's a hawk feather or if it is a crow or there's a bunch of different types of patterns, but it can kind of just it has a little bit of like symbolic meaning behind that. But what I do always really like is that I like to believe that whenever I see like a feather out in the wild, that it's like an ancestor trying to say hello.
I love that. I think that's so sweet. So that's a little bit of folklore for this episode. And then we have just a couple more things we're going to do before we wrap up the first episode of Hello Sister.
All right. We've talked about the episode. We've listened to some folklore. And now it's time for some hot takes or final thoughts. What do you got for us, Christina? How do you feel about this first pilot episode of the Vampire Diaries?
I mean, I think it's a really solid pilot episode, honestly. And I'm not just saying that because obviously I'm biased. We are biased because we're doing a podcast about the Vampire Diaries. But I think it's a really successful pilot. It covers so much information, first day of school, Elena's grief, all of her family messiness, Stefan's first day of school, coming back to Mystic Falls, his family messiness, animal attacks, all the other messy things happening with Vicky and Jeremy and Tyler, Mr. Tanner. There's just so much happening here, right? So it does a lot, but I think it overall is a really successful pilot. Some other thoughts. I think Stefan has a hot back, a hot front, a hot everything, and I will be counting, at least for myself, but I'll probably say it out loud. How many times do we see him shirtless?
I'd count 1.
Yeah, we're at count 1. I'm hoping we get much higher in the upcoming episodes, just for me personally. I don't really like Damon from the beginning. Sorry, not sorry. I know he's hot, but I just kind of want to punch him so far. And I feel like he's here messing up stuff for my boy Steph, who, we only just met, but he seems like a sweetie. I want Caroline and Vicky to have some more confidence and self-love. That seems like an issue. I think Bonnie is the absolute best friend, but she feels a little bit on the side.
Yeah.
Tyler sucks. Matt's annoying. Elena doesn't realize she cut herself. So I have thoughts. But she's a great sister. And then I think the last thing I'll kind of say for my hot takes, final thoughts of the pilot episode is that because we just spent time talking about the folklore associated with vampires, and we know very little in this pilot episode with how vampires work, right? We know they drink human blood.
Yep.
But they can survive on animal blood.
Mm-hmm.
If they're drinking human blood like Damon, they might have some additional special powers.
Like fogs and crows.
Like fox and crows. And then we do know that the Salvatore brothers both have rings, and they are magical rings that seemingly help them from going poof in the sun. But that's really and that Stefan can't enter.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think they are going with the vampires cannot be welcomed in unless they're invited in this universe for sure.
But that's about all we know so far. So Brenna, what about you? What are your hot takes?
I think similarly to you, as just a film TV person kind of and writer, just always looking at those things, I think that this episode does a lot, and I think that they really just put it all out there. They are setting the scene, and that's really hard to do. Like and a lot of times I feel like, I'm sure you can agree, like when I am thinking about these things, especially when I'm doing a rewatch of something where you have a little bit more time to think about it a little bit more deeply how much work that must be to try to stitch all of this together to be able to present it
in 42 minutes.
In 42 minutes. And it's like, here we are, hopefully maybe doing it in 2 hours because, this is the first of our journey with this as well. And it just makes me have a lot of respect for people that can do that kind of storytelling because it's a lot to do, especially because you're trying to get people interested. And I think they do. They do it really well, and you're just intrigued. There are a lot of little mysteries strewn about, and it just makes you want to jump right into the next episode. I think as I get older, I continually have some questions about old vampires. Going for young teenagers is something that I don't try to think about it too hard, but it is really silly. And I just think it's crazy that Stefan makes a real choice to go all the way back to high school just to know Elena. But I mean,
he has to know her.
He has to know her. But I don't know if we needed to go to high school is all I'm saying. I don't know if we needed to do the whole high school thing again just to get close to her. I'm sure he could have probably just met her around in the small town that everybody knows where everybody lives.
Why doesn't he just say that his uncle Zach homeschools him?
I literally also, what about, Uncle Zach, him calling him Uncle Damon, crazy stuff, so funny. It's like, also, I feel like Uncle Cousin Zach, he's definitely
he's their nephew.
Uncle nephew. But he's like a little bit of a stick in the mud. You know what I mean? Isn't he a little bit of a stick in the mud?
He's just such a random character.
Yeah, he's so random. But you know who is random and also the fucking worst is Mr. Tanner. So I'll just say bye. Hate you.
He's terrible in the books too.
Yeah, this man should not be teaching high school students.
No.
So someone needs to report him to the school administration. And then I agree with you with our girls, Vicky and Caroline. I'm very intrigued and can't wait to kind of just see a little bit more of their, not can't wait, but interested to see, hoping for some more better things coming their way, just because we do find them in a tough place. And the men who are in a tough place, while I'm sorry for Jeremy, but Matt and Tyler are not my favorite at this moment in time. Let's see. Oh, and then I have to say, Elena just being such a level-headed character is just something that's very interesting to me. Again, as the protagonist, she kind of does have this more open way about her, and I think that's so that she is us, the audiences, insert into this world. But I do think that she is handling grief remarkably well and is a really, really great big sister. And I think you had said that as well. Mm-hmm. So I want more from Bonnie. I think that she's
always more of Bonnie.
She's doing some work, just having to navigate some of these people. I think in a lot of ways, Bonnie and Elena are the most adjusted people that we've met in this episode so far. Yeah. Damon's hot, and I'm not sorry about it. And I'm looking forward to his shenanigans. And then my one last little thing, I'll say there needs to be more late night coffee shops, like we see at the end of the episode where Bonnie and Caroline are. I just wish those existed.
That'd be so fun.
They probably do. I just don't think there are any near us, but
none that are true late night.
Yeah. So anyway, that's about all I've got for our hot takes today on this episode. But I know that our next little thing we would like to do is call out a favorite line from our episode.
Yes. This is something we're going to do in every episode of the podcast. So I guess I'll go first. Yeah. I think that there's one line that is just hilarious that I have to share. It's an uncomfortable line, but it's hilarious. And that is when Jeremy's basically annoying Vicky at work, right? Let the girl work. And, she says, you have to stop following me around like a lost puppy. And he says, when was the last time you had sex with a puppy. And, I've said this line now multiple times in this episode, and I am a proud mother of dogs, and we should not be doing that. What a crazy line to have written. But I do it's just, what a line, right? It stays with you. And then I would say my true, favorite line of the episode is in an earlier scene where Elena follows Jeremy into the bathroom and is checking to see if he has drugs on him. And just Nina Dobrev's delivery of, "You haven't seen crazy Jeremy," it's just so good. And I feel like I can't hear that phrase without adding Jeremy on the end.
Yeah, 100%. And those are very good, notable lines from the show, even if the puppy line is deeply questionable.
It's cringy. So what about you, Brenna? Do you have a favorite line or lines from the episode?
Yeah. So I will say the one little scene between Tyler and Jeremy in the beginning of the episode where Tyler's like, "Hey, Pete Wentz called. He wants his nail polish back." And then Jeremy goes, "Pete Wentz, huh? How old school TRL of you. Carson Daly fan?" And that just really puts us firmly in a time where people were still watching MTV and really and I mean, I guess at this point, probably on its way, not as popular as it was probably when, a few years prior to that. I'm I don't know. I'd have to look to see when MTV's true heyday was, but it was definitely not I wasn't watching it as much at that point in time, if I recall. I don't think I was, but
I feel like I watched a lot in middle school, which would have been what, I think
early to mid
2003, 2004.
Yeah,
or
for sure.
Before that.
Agree. Yeah. So
around the millennium.
Yeah. Right around the millennium. But yeah, so that line's great, but you know what? We can't, we got to say it. I think we do. It might be a little corny, it might be a little cheesy, but I think our hello brother is also
It is, it's
deal.
iconic.
It's a big deal.
It's iconic.
So those are mine.
I love that. Thank you for sharing. So there's just one more thing we're going to do before we close up this first episode of our podcast. This is something we're going to do at the end of every episode. And I just want to say this is something Brenna and I will not know what each other's answers are until we do this every episode. So we're learning it about each other as you're learning it. So we're going to play a fun game that I like to call Fuck, Marry, Kill.
Fuck, marry, kill.
So Brenna, for episode 1, pilot of the Vampire Diaries, who would you fuck, who would you marry, and who would you kill?
Oh, okay. Fuck Damon, of course. Come on. It couldn't be anyone else. Marry Bonnie Bennett. Great friend. She's just lovely, and I think that it would be nice coming home to her every night.
She's
you know
also
what
beautiful,
I mean?
so.
She is. Kat Graham is a stunningly beautiful woman.
We love you, Kat Graham.
And then kill. This is pretty easy. Oh, actually, you know what's funny is I would say it's pretty easy, and it is, but it also isn't because there are some killable people in this episode. But for me today, Mr. Tanner, fuck that dude.
Yeah, I think
How about
those
you?
Excellent choices.
Thank you.
All right, so I gotta say fuck Stefan.
Yeah. Well,
I mean,
yeah.
mother may I. In terms of Mary, I think Bonnie's a great choice. I think I'm going to go with, even though we don't get a ton of her yet, I'm going to go with Caroline.
I actually love this.
And for me, it's because, I will say, this is not spoiling anything about her, but she is one of my favorite characters in the show. And so I'm excited for us to go on this journey with her, but also I get her. Yeah. I think that's what it is. Yeah. I get her. She's very type A. She comes across very extroverted. She's very extra. And I feel like as a Gemini sun, I sometimes come on too hot, or so often I say things out loud before my brain's caught up with it. Yeah. And so I really relate to that aspect of her. But we've talked about, we think she's coming from a good place. Yeah. And we see in the coffee shop with Bonnie that she's not as maybe vain or as like kind of like cool girl as
like
she comes
stereotypical
across,
popular
right?
girl. Yeah, she definitely has her.
She's insecure and she's hurting, and that to me is very human and very relatable. So I feel like I'd want to spend more time with her, and she would talk my ear off, which is sometimes nice for a person who talks all the time to not have to carry the weight of the conversation.
For sure. She would never run out of things to talk to you about.
No, never. And then since you killed Mr. Tanner, because it's a pretty obvious choice, I'm going to go ahead and kill Tyler.
Okay.
Because, he tries to rape someone in this episode, and that is not okay.
Yeah.
And he's just also like a grade A douchebag. Sleeping with your best friend's sister, how he treats Jeremy, everything. He's just awful. So I would definitely kill him.
Yeah, I agree. He sucks, and he was at the top. I was about to be like, he was at the top of my kill list. But you know what? He was at the top of my kill list. But yeah, all right. Christina.
I think we did it.
I think we did it.
I think we completed the first episode of Hello Sister Podcast. We did it. I just want to say thank you so much, my girl Bren, for doing this with me. This is so much fun. And just like such a cool adventure for us to do and something to do creatively. And best excuse in the world, we just get to watch the show that we really love and talk about it.
It's been so fun prepping for this, and I am excited to go on this journey with you. I'm excited for folks that are tuning in for coming along on this ride. We're learning along the way, and I'm really proud that we're, doing these things, because I think when we're in this weird time in life where, or I don't know, maybe it's like in your 30s, like which spoiler alert, Christina and I are both in our 30s, if you couldn't glean from that. I guess we didn't really say it, but you could probably guess.
We're in our 30s.
But I think just being able to do fun new things and like not being super concerned about it being like weird or awkward, because it might be weird and it might be awkward, but I think all things considered, we done did it and it was great.
We're doing great. And I'm really proud of us too. I also, besides, of course, thanking you, my wonderful co-host, I want to thank our husbands, because they do so much for this podcast. They are definitely behind the scenes, but we might try to get them on camera at times. But I want to thank my husband, Alex Schneider, and Brenna's husband, Dwight Evan Young, for their graphics that they've provided, the production assistance. All of it is stuff that, we could do, but it would be real janky. So we are very so grateful for them.
Yeah. And I don't think I said it earlier, but thank you for being on this journey with me. I'm very excited to do this with you. And thank you, our listeners, for tuning in to Hello Sister. And we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Hello Sister is written, directed, and hosted by Christina Rosso-Schneider and Brenna Dinon. Graphic designs are by Alex Schneider. Music is written and produced by Dwight Evan Young. Sound design and video are recorded and produced by Dwight Evan Young and Brenna Dinon. Hello Sister Podcast is a Bad Day Media production. We did it!
And that was like 60 minutes, so perfect.